My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. And as we were getting close to the end there, I was getting a little, antsy, because I thought, this is it. This is the last look over at, this radio monitor, this look over at this map that's right here, yelling over to the other side to my partner for something, or looking over to my left for my backup. Even as simple as looking up at these lights, I was trying to take pictures in my head of everything in the center.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. And there's a lot going on, as always. I actually just put out episode 662, but I wanted to give you all a twofer for this week, going into the weekend, because it's Friday. And just a couple days ago, I celebrated my 13th year anniversary of being out of dispatch. And it was bittersweet. But also, before I continue, I just want to make sure to give a shout out to all subscribers, as always, and all of you who watch, share, listen, and support. I appreciate you more than you know. So thank you for everything. So as I mentioned, 13 years ago, just a couple days ago, was my last day in dispatch. And I just want to take you through that. I want to take you through that time, because a lot happened. So leading up to my last day in dispatch, it was the beginning of everything that I do for a living. It was the beginning of the podcast. It was exploding.
I had spoken at my first Michigan NINA conference, talking about what I was doing with the podcast, sharing dispatch stories, how important they are and how they are needed. How these stories can be someone else's inspiration to either join the thin gold line or just sharing a story to help someone know that they're not alone. Also, it was therapeutic for me to talk about my stories and therapeutic for others. Not everyone, but a lot of folks as well, to talk and share their stories. And I ended up getting to go to my first national NINA conference. While there, I took part in a lot of different things, recorded a bunch of sessions for one, but also met a bunch of people, networked, got a phone call from a producer that I thought was fake at the time. Sorry, Melissa. But turned out to be a producer for a show called Panic 911 that was on A&E. And I got the chance to take part in that, which was awesome. And also during that time, there was a documentary crew that was walking around the conference center. And they asked me if I wanted to take part in it. And I did. The documentary was called Hotline. And it was pretty cool to be able to do that. There was a small section for dispatch that was in there. And my buddy Doug Showalter got to be in that as well. And, we'll show that to you right now. Here it is.
Okay. We're coming as fast as we can. I'm going to stay on the phone with you, sir. You're not going to die, sir. Okay? No, I want you to keep talking to me. You're going to be fine. Coming as fast as we can.
We don't get closure. We could take a medical and be performing CPR, and as soon as the ambulance gets there, we pick up the next call. And we never know.
A lot of dispatchers fall into this thing where they don't want to tell people what they do for a living, because what's the first question everybody always asks? What's the worst call you've ever had? And then what do you have to do? You have to relive it. And it's tough. And if you don't talk about it with other people and say, hey, this could be a problem. It is a situation. It is something to think about, that it could come back on you.
Currently, we are sitting within the Charlotte Convention Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is the 2013 National NINA Conference and Expo. It's targeted towards us. There's classes, stuff that we can learn from and build on, and networking. What I like about being within the 911 community and being a 911 supervisor is that I get to help people. I started this podcast within the trenches. I wanted people to be able to hear more dispatch stories and learn from what we do and why we do the things that we do.
This is the opportunity of a lifetime to start networking with everybody, start talking to people. I don't know if you saw me at the booth. I am not afraid to talk to people. I will go up and talk to them and then kind of draw them into, you're all part of this thing. When we see these big incidents occur, shootings, stuff blowing up, terrorist activity, whatever, our first thought is always, wow, I wonder what the dispatchers are going through, because we've all been there.
We're the first responders. We're there at the beginning of the call and at the very end of the call. And we're getting, all the information for all the responders that are going out there. That's where we fit into the whole scheme of things of emergency services.
How we say it, what we say, what we tell them to do, we can save their life that fast.
So that was just a short clip from the documentary Hotline, and very interesting, the documentary where, it talks about that human connection, that connection between strangers and someone reaching out for help, and the trust that goes into a voice. So it was really cool to take part in that. And thank you to the creators of that documentary for having Doug and myself on to share a little bit about what we do, what 911 is about, and that connection that we have with our callers as well. So while I was there, a company that I later ended up going to work for, they had found me through the podcast, through my Kickstarter campaign, where I was trying to crowdfund to get the money for microphones and just the stuff that I needed. Because up until that point, I had this, well, some of them were recorded with just like headphones and the little microphone. And then some of the other ones were recorded with this huge speaker that I had that had ports for microphones to go into. Now, that whole setup, it was recorded in mono. So the first several episodes of the podcast, if you've gone that far, back that far to listen from the beginning all the way till now, you will hear myself on one side and my co-host or guest on the other side, like headphones, because it wasn't in stereo. But I promise you, the sound got way better. But in the beginning, that's what it was like. And this one company helped me out. While I was at that national conference, the president from that company ends up showing up and saying hello, telling me that he traveled from Fort Wayne, Indiana to Charlotte, North Carolina to meet with me, because ultimately he offered me a position. And it took a few weeks, but I finally decided I'm going to go ahead and do it. Part of that decision was not just my family, but also my family in dispatch. They were the ones who also helped me decide that this was a good thing. Choose yourself, choose your family. But also by leaving and doing what you're doing, especially this company continues to support what you do, which they did, you will be helping not only us, but 911 as a whole. Because I'm sharing these stories. And it's hopefully eventually going to help, which it has. There's been a lot of stuff that has come from it. So I remember going in that day when I finally decided I'm going to go in and put in my 2 weeks notice. And up until that point, I would go in for my midnight shift. I was a supervisor there as well. And I would say to my deputy director before walking in, that's it, I'm done. I quit. This is my last day. And then we would laugh it off and I would go into dispatch to work. Or we would shoot the shit a little bit and then I would go in and, start the shift. Well, this day, I end up walking in, shutting the door and sitting down. And my deputy director looks at me and she goes, well, Ricardo, is today the day that you are going to be leaving or putting in your notice? And I chuckled and I said, yeah, actually, that is exactly what I'm doing. And she says, what, really? And I said, well, you notice that I shut the door and I'm sitting down right now. Because usually I'd be standing in the doorway. And she goes, huh. I knew that when you started doing all of this and it started getting a lot bigger and bigger and people wanted to share and do so many different things, that eventually this was going to be what was going to happen. I'm really happy for you. And, it's going to suck to lose you, but also, you kind of beat me to the punch because I had something to say to you as well. And I thought, oh man, were you going to fire me? And she says, no, I wasn't going to, no, that's not what was going to happen. No. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, what's going on? What were you going to say? And she says, well, I was going to tell you that 2 hours ago, I just put in my 2 weeks notice. And I was shocked, right? I was shocked. And I said, "Nah, you're just messing with me, right?" And she goes, "No, I'm serious. We're both leaving at the same time." We had our going away parties the same day as well. And that was pretty tough. Again, bittersweet, saying goodbye to everyone that I had worked with, having these experiences that no one else will ever be able to understand, because we were the ones. We were the ones. So when I put that 2 weeks notice in, it was close to my dad's birthday. And I thought, I want my last day in dispatch to be on my dad's birthday, which is July 22nd. So that day, July 22nd, 2013, I go in to work a 1P to 1A shift. And I did it that way because I wanted to work with the morning crew, not just there in dispatch, but those out in the field as well, and say my goodbyes to them. And then work the last part of the shift with my team, which was with Whitney and Jill. And when they came in for their shift, I switched from main phones to main radios. And I will say this really quick. The last 2 weeks of dispatch, I have said in my keynotes and other times that I've talked about when I first got into dispatching, that first day on my own, if dispatch was a gang, I was getting beat in. Well, those last 2 weeks of dispatch, samesies. If dispatch was a gang, I was getting beat out because I took every shit call that you could think of. And now we're finally at this last day. And like I said, I'm on radios now, going through, talking throughout the shift with my coworkers and reflecting on a lot of things that we've experienced together and things that I experienced beforehand, little tips, tricks, things like that to leave them as I'm getting towards the end of my dispatch career. And I remember a few days prior to that last day, I was on phones and my partners, Whitney and Jill, are on the other side of the center on main radios and backup radios and phones. And I remember Whitney playing a song. And I had said to them before she played the song, I said, there are a few songs that I've heard recently that I feel like really resonate with me leaving. And it's made me kind of sad, but also, excited for the future. And one of them is by the Jackson 5, and it's Never Can Say Goodbye. Never can say goodbye. No, 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 why? No, I don't have a singing voice, but that's the way some of it goes. And they liked it, but Whitney also said, and I think it was because this song was going around that time too. It's called Cups, and it's sung by Anna Kendrick from Pitch Perfect. And it goes something to the effect of, "You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair. You're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone." And then it goes on and on. When I'm gone, when I'm gone. And I thought, damn, that one really fits as well. And because they were talking about just the way I say certain things or some of the humor that I've had, or that I have rather, and we were just getting emotional. So whenever I hear either one of those songs, it reminds me of that time as well. So I'm on radios that last day, and we're getting towards almost 11 at night. And the person, and it might have been a little bit earlier, But the person who was supposed to come and relieve me, who was also one of my team members, she ended up calling in sick. And I remember she just kept saying, "I am so sorry, Ricardo. I wanted to see you before you left. I was holding out, excuse me, I was holding out as much as I could, hoping that I would feel better, but it's not going to happen. So I'm really sorry." And I said, "Don't worry about it. I hope you feel better. Don't worry at all." And it was awesome working with you over these years. And we hung up, and I had mentioned to the team that my relief had called in. And I remember I was looking at the schedule book for a little bit, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do it. Because here's the thing. When somebody calls in, you are supposed to go down the call list, or the force-in list is what it's called. And if somebody answers the phone, then, they're the ones who end up coming in for it. Otherwise, the people who are working, they will be the ones that take that time. Well, I decided that I was not going to go down the list. And I remember Whitney, who was sitting to my left, she was on backup phones and radios. She asks, and she goes, Are you not going to go down the list? You're not going to call anybody in? And I said, no. And she goes, are you sure? It's your last shift. You're supposed to be getting off in just a couple hours. And I said, no, I don't want to force anybody in. Plus, you guys are my team. And those out on the road, that's our crew. I want to go out with our team. So in true dispatch fashion, my last shift was an overtime 16-hour shift. But it was fun. Again, I wanted to go out with everybody that I had been working with. And it felt good to do so. Especially because we got to talk a lot more, reflect a lot more. And as we were getting close to the end there, I was getting a little, antsy, because I thought, this is it. This is the last look over at, this radio monitor, this look over at this map that's right here, yelling over to the other side to my partner for something, or looking over to my left for my backup. Even as simple as looking up at these lights, I was trying to take pictures in my head of everything in the center, because it was the last of everything that I was going to be doing in there. And I was also preparing for the tailgating we were going to be doing, because my team had asked me, do you want us to bring food or something? And I said, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, we can order pizza or something like that. And I said, and I jokingly said this. I said, it would be cool to tailgate in the dispatch parking lot, make some steak and eggs, because they knew that I love steak and eggs. And they said, that's what we're going to do. And I said, are you for real? And they said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And I wish that I would have taken pictures that morning. I do have one picture, which I'll show here in a moment, but we ended up tailgating. They bought steaks, and Whitney and Jill, we were going to do this. So we're getting close to time to be the end of the shift. And we're sitting there and we're talking. And I have to say this, but be careful what you wish for or what you put out there in the universe. Why? Because it just might happen. Seriously, it just might happen. And the question came out of, what are some of the things that, didn't happen while you were here throughout your career and stuff? Or maybe some calls or whichever. And I said, out of everything, there's one call that I never had the chance to take. And Whitney right away, I looked, she goes, don't say it. Don't put it out there because it might happen. And I said, no, with the time that's left, there's no way that this call type would ever happen. So they say, okay, what is it? And I said, a medical where I have to translate in Spanish. I had taken calls before, non-emergency and emergency calls on 911, where I had to translate Spanish, but it was never for a medical. So I said that and I started chuckling about it and they were laughing too. And I shit you not, just a little while later, phone rings on 911 and I hear my partner start saying in what Spanish she knew, un momento, which is just a minute. Just 1 second is basically, like, hold on, just 1 minute, just a second, one moment, just one moment. And I look over to my left at Whitney and she goes, bro, you see? She goes, that's all you. That's your fault. You did that. You put it out there. And I'm like, no. I start chuckling. No. Jill puts the person on hold really fast and she's chuckling a little bit as she's standing up to tell me something. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh, this is a joke. And I said to her, I was like, dude, you almost had me. I was like, did you have one of the officers call up? And she goes, no, you need to pick up the phone now. I don't know what it is, but you need to pick up the phone. And I thought, oh, crap. Pick up the phone. And sure enough, 1, I have to translate in Spanish, and 2, it ends up being a medical. Yeah. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you put out there in the universe, because it might just happen. And in this case, it did. It was a guy having difficulty breathing. And with our protocols for EMD and everything, chest pain, difficulty breathing, shortness of, like, all of these things, those are priority ones. But the thing though was that this guy had no idea where he was. No idea where he was. He was at a friend's house. They had a party. Everyone is passed out drunk. And it was one of those moments for him where he woke up out of being passed out drunk and didn't really know where he was at. So he was all out of sorts. And luckily though, where he was at in this apartment complex was an area that I basically grew up in. Because where this place was, it was just along the way where when I would visit friends, family in this area that I grew up in. So I knew exactly where he was at. And we were able to get, there was an officer that was working that area that got out there first before EMS. And EMS gets there. Ultimately, turns out that there was no transport. The guy was okay. He was kind of having a panic attack because he woke up and didn't know where he was at. And yeah, he ended up being okay. He was fine. But I put it out there and it happened. So be careful. But my coworkers were laughing as well. They're like, holy crap. What are the odds? And I said the same thing. I said, for real, what are the odds that that would happen? I can't believe it. But it happened. So that, ends up finishing. And we're sitting there just still laughing about what happened. And it's getting close to time for me to do my final transmission. And I was trying to think of what I was going to do. And I typed out just a little bit of it. I also added some stuff in extra that was in the final transmission. And I remember my hands getting sweaty, and I was just, this is it. This is the last transmission. And I want to share that with you here right now.
Allegan Central to all stations and units. My 8 years here has come to an end now. It has been an excellent experience. Giggity and Godspeed. It's been a pleasure and an honor working with all of you. I'm out. 420.
420. Hoorah! I know. Yeah, that was nice. Oh, where do you start?
That was my last transmission. My final radio transmission of my dispatch career. And you can't really tell towards the end. But when I say it's been an honor and a pleasure, or pleasure and honor, I forget how I put that. But that part right there, I move my head a little bit, like down and up as I'm saying it, because I started getting emotional. And I said, it's been an honor and pleasure working with all of you. I'm out. 420. Right at 420. If you know what that number is and what it means. I had planned it to do it at 420. But before I get to that explanation, I maneuvered my head and my mouth the way I was saying what I was saying, because my lips started to quiver because it was really hitting me towards the end. It's like 34 seconds. But in those 34 seconds, it felt like forever that I was saying goodbye. And I think what made it more emotional, or that much deeper, was the fact that all the officers keyed up, saying what they were saying there at the end, which you heard. And if you can hear in the sound effects, there's some sound effects in there. It sounds like boom, boom. All of that sound, those sounds that were playing, that was from the MCT, which is the laptop that the officers use to run different things as they, license plates, license checks, all of those. Or we can send messages directly to them and they send them back. So that's the sound that I'm receiving from messages from the officers saying bye, saying Godspeed. It's been awesome working with you. Thank you for everything. And so to hear that over the radio, but then to hear those sounds coming up from the messages from officers, that hit hard as well. I also didn't know that I was being recorded at the time, and I will always be grateful and thankful to you, Whitney. If you ever see this, I love you, dude. You're the best. Thank you for recording that, because I will forever have it. I appreciate you and everyone who was there, but especially you for filming that, because again, I will always have that. And I've shown my kids that video as well, and they just go, wow, that's a whole other life that they didn't know about. Logan, yes, but he was like, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe, when I got out of it. Lola was maybe 2. Olivia wasn't even born yet. So it's crazy for her to see some of that stuff and think, wow, that's Dad in dispatch. And so an explanation about some of the things that I said on there. You hear me sniff, you hear me go, you hear meow, giggity. All of those things were things that I did over the radio. And that's why I said it in my final transmission as well, because I wanted it to be special. And for those to hear that, because they would hear me say that stuff on the radio. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I was always professional on the radio. Sometimes I would play around, but it was when nothing else was going on, when I'm sure people out there on the road are trying to stay awake and busy, is when I would say some of those things. So the sniff part, that actually started with one of my officers. A state trooper was speaking over the radio, and then right after that, the deputy keys up and sniffs. I know it sounds stupid, but it was funny, because then I would key up and sniff back. Or when we would key up on the radio, we would make the noise, because you would hear it go throop, but you could also hear kind of the static. So it would be throop, central to K91, and then they would throop, go ahead. Again, so stupid, but it would break up the chaos that is what we do and deal with. And then meow like Super Troopers, giggity from Family Guy. There was only a couple times that we said that one, and but either way, it was that's why I had that in there. And then of course ending it at 4:20, because we would do time checks at 4:20 just because it was funny. But all of that made it that much more special, that connection that I had with those out in the field on the other side of the radio. But even with that humor, it was bittersweet, and I got emotional. At the end, I said goodbye to everybody. I drove north to get my brother, and I brought him back with me. And we did do that little mini tailgate out in the parking lot, which was a lot of fun. We had the steak and eggs. It was so cool. And again, I'll be forever grateful to you, Whitney and Jill, for that breakfast that morning. When we parted ways, though, I mentioned there was a picture. And I'll put that on screen right now. But that picture right there is right after all of it. And I was taking off with my brother, and I stopped right away. And I said to him, come out here with me really quick. And he goes, what's wrong? And I said, I just want to take a picture by this sign. Take this picture for me. And he goes, oh, okay. And that was the last picture that I had there from dispatch. And before that, I'd walked around inside the building, just taking mental pictures to remember everything. And after we took that picture, I got back in the car. And before I took off, I broke. I broke down crying. And I remember my brother just kind of patting me on my back. And he goes, it's okay. You're okay. And I said, I know, man. It's just, this is what I've known for all of these years. And I'm leaving all of these people that who are family to me and who I've worked with all these years on calls that at one time haunted me I've come out of that portion. I learned, I started talking about things and it became therapeutic, but there are moments that I spent with these people that no one will ever understand but us. And I'm sure a lot of you who are in this profession feel the same way. There are things that happen in that room that is sometimes hard to talk about, sometimes hard for people to understand. But I'll always have those memories. And I remember wiping my tears and I was like, I know something good is going to happen. I don't know what. But I'm closing this chapter and we'll see what happens. But that was my last day in dispatch. I just wanted to share that with you. A lot has happened in those 13 years. Been on the private side. I've worked on my own. I've got partnerships. And this podcast is now heard in over 60 countries. In the beginning, I was just happy for 100 people to hear it because I wanted people to understand more about 911 professionals, what they do and why they do it, and how powerful they are in just their voice and their story, but also to not only have them recognize, have a seat at the table, but to share these powerful stories around the world because they deserve to be heard and because they matter. This is something I've been doing for over a decade. And this podcast has surpassed 2.4 million downloads. Ended up going on to found the I Am 911 movement, create a peer support session, Imagine Listening, become an author with Imagine Listening books, and just so much more. But it's because of all of you and your support that I've been able to do all of that. But looking back then, that last day, 13 years ago, 2 days ago, I never would have imagined what it has become, but it's because of you. So thank you. Seriously, thank you for everything, the continued support through all these years and beyond from now, and for what you do in this profession. You are my why. And for those from the general public who are listening and watching, I wanted to be able to share that moment with you because a lot has happened. And a lot happened that day. From that call, throwing it out there to the universe, to working that 16-hour shift. But again, because I wanted to be there with my team and experience the rest of it. What a journey. What an experience. But there you have it. Thank you for joining me today. There are so many more episodes coming up, announcements, so many things. A 10-year anniversary of the I Am 911 movement, the Imagine Listening sessions, just everything that's coming up. I cannot wait to share that with you. So stay tuned. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. The easiest way to do this is to go to links, and that's links with 2i's.co/IM911. You'll find everything there. And whether you are new to dispatch, seasoned or retired, the link is there to schedule an episode. Shout out to our partners and sponsor, Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. You can see this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. There are clips on Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and TikTok, and that also includes stories from the I Am 911 movement and Imagine Listening. And then to listen 24/7, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Again, it has been an experience. I would not change it for the world. And, there's a community piece as well called The Trenches that you can find on that link that I mentioned as well. And the Imagine Listening books, podcasts, merch, as well as dispatch merch, all of it is there. If I could go back in time to talk to myself that day, not just the beginning of my career, but that day that I was crying when I was leaving, I would tell myself, everything is going to be okay. You're not going to see it right away, but you're going to help so many people. Just keep doing what you do. Don't care about what others think. Just be you. You're going to connect with these 911 heroes in a way that you never thought you could. Everything's going to be okay. One last question, though, before I wrap this up. You heard my final transmission, so I want you to take something with you. I want you to think about this. If today was your last day in dispatch, and you were getting ready to give your final radio transmission, what are 2 things that you would want to make sure was in that final transmission? Think about it. I put it out there on social media, and one person, a bunch of people have responded, but one person specifically said that they didn't realize how emotional it was going to make them. There you have it. Let's think about that. Take that with you. It's been an amazing experience. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.
Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.